Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with, oh my goodness, Ana-Marija Markovina doing the complete Mendelssohn piano music, Felix, because we've already talked about her series, it's ongoing, of the complete piano works of Fanny Mendelssohn, which is almost as voluminous as this is going to be. It's a lot of music out there. This is 12 CDs on the Hänssler label. And this came out first, but I didn't have a chance to talk about it at the time. Now, Markovina is a very interesting pianist because, of course, she's recorded the complete CPE Bach. Keyboard works fabulously, and as I pointed out before, and now she's doing Fanny Mendelssohn. And the interesting thing about this particular set is that it's one thing to praise a pianist when they do repertoire that nobody else is doing, and there's not a lot of competition, and so you don't have as much a sense of it, and when they do a big project, it's a wonderful thing, and there's a tendency perhaps to be excessively enthusiastic. But Markovina is the real deal. Yes, her CPE Bach was marvelous and exploratory and wonderful because of its uniqueness. But her Mendelssohn is every bit as good. It's really, really good. And there's a lot of Mendelssohn. I mean, Howard Shelley's doing one on Hyperion and the complete piano works. And who was it? Benjamin Frith, I think, did it on Naxos. And Roberto Proceda on Decca, who is absolutely first class. And actually, Roberto Proceda helped her with this series. He made available some of his research and his scores and the early works and fragments and things like that. So there was a certain amount of collegiality and cooperation. It was very kind of him to be so forthcoming with this particular project, but they're not the same. And Mendelssohn's piano works are seriously undervalued and underrated. People don't realize, one of the problems with Mendelssohn, of course, is that he was a genius, a child prodigy. And so a lot of them are very early. I mean, there's a whole passel of piano sonatas, something like 7 or 8 of them. I don't know. There's like a bunch of them. And most of them were composed when he was quite young. And so are they derivative of like Mozart and Beethoven? Well, yes, they are, but they're good because he was a good composer from the time he was in the womb, and very well trained and very well educated, and he was a genius. And so we listen to these works, if we listen to them at all, and we love to pick at them and criticize them and talk about how they sound like other people, or, this movement isn't as good as that thing, and I have no patience for it because I understand that there are going to be some works that are better than other works. But, I mean, there's serious vision in this music. There's scale. Some of these sonatas are big, 25-minute piece, long pieces, big works. And they're gorgeous. They're just beautiful. So, what's the problem? I don't get it. I've never understood it. I really never have. Even when I wasn't a big fan of like Mendelssohn's, sacred music or the oratorios or things like that, I always thought his piano music was splendid. Now, of course, everybody likes at least some of these songs without words. But even those are sort of used as a club, to beat them up because they're salon music, they're ladies' music, they're music for domestic consumption. Well, okay, yeah, they're all that, but they're beautiful. And every so often you come across a piece, because Mendelssohn loved music in minor keys, that has a startling level of depth. I mean, there is a funeral march in the Songs Without Words that sounds awfully like the opening of Mahler's Fifth Symphony. And it's really dark and very, very powerful. It's not for nothing that the Mendelssohn Songs Without Words fascinated Alcan, who wrote a whole series of pieces called chants, songs that were songs without words, that were all in the form of one of Mendelssohn's Song Without Words suites. They all have a barcarolle at the end, for example. There's a lot of super quality music. Mendelssohn was in some ways his own worst enemy because he was terribly self-critical, and most of his music wasn't published in his lifetime, although he was extremely careful about preserving it and notating it and keeping it. I mean, the notebooks and things are all there, and they're calligraphic. So it's not that we don't know what it is, but he was not self-promoting in that way. So, all of which is a long way of saying these 12 CDs contain tons of good music. I mean, there's more to it than the songs without words. You've got the Variations Sérieuses, which are beautiful, and many other sets of variations. You've got the sonatas, including the Opus 106 in B flat, which is based on Beethoven's Hammerklavier, Opus 106 in B flat. It's much shorter. It's a lot more modest. But Mendelssohn was one of the very few composers who understood and admired late Beethoven. And so it's wonderful to hear, how he pays, homage to Beethoven directly and indirectly. And then you've got certain works that are just like nothing else, like the Preludes and Fugues, Opus 35. And, one of my linchpins for checking out Mendelssohn pianists is how they handle that Opus 35 number 1, which is one of the most stunningly beautiful preludes and fugues anyone ever wrote. It's one of the great romantic polyphonic exordia. The fugue accelerates as it goes. It begins very quietly, and then it becomes more and more virtuosic and more excited until finally, at the climax, a beautiful chorale breaks out with the contrapuntal accompaniment in the left hand underneath it. And it's just one of the most wonderful moments in romantic piano music. Markovina plays it beautifully. I particularly like the way that she punches out the chorale. She makes it bolder, a little bit bolder, actually, I think, than Mendelssohn notated, because his notation, I think, calls for it to be played something like mezzo forte, and she's more dynamic and driving, and I think it's all to the good. This is music that withstands many interpretive approaches, and you'll find tons and tons of delightful moments in here. So I enjoyed this tremendously. I have the Proceda set, which I like. I've got Riccelli. I've got a whole bunch of other people all doing this music. And it's a good thing that the music is being taken out and given a really serious amount of consideration and care, because it deserves it. It's good music. And Markovina reminds us of that at every point. So good for her, and good for Mendelssohn, and good for Hänssler. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.